Iran is a place that was extremely hostile when I first came into office. They were on 14 different sites between Yemen, Syria, and then many other battle zones. They were behind terrorism in lots of different places. They were a terrorist nation, #1 in the world at that time, and probably maybe are today, and they were a funder of terrorism.
Do you think you will need to take military action?
There's always a chance. Do I want to? No, I'd rather not, but there's always a chance.
To discuss that, bring in Middle East analyst Thane Rosenbaum and also Asaf Ramirovsky, a fellow at the Middle East Forum. Thane, I'll start with you here on set. Welcome. President Trump, he would rather talk with Iran than go to war, as we just heard. And also earlier in the week, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, he said that he's open to talks with the U.S. if the U.S. changes its behavior. So it seems that everyone wants to talk, but Iran is trying to save face. Is that the case here?
Yes, they want to talk, but the question is, what will they talk about? I mean, for instance, this new news isn't really all that shocking about Iran's ongoing enrichment activities. Everyone who didn't work in the Obama administration was sure that the monitoring inspection of their activities were suspect, and that it could be very possible that the centrifuges and the enrichment could eventually be used for weapons. And so the fact that now we're hearing that they may be 8 months away is not that surprising. So the question is, if they are going to talk, what are they going to talk about? Because clearly President Trump is not interested in reinstating the old deal and to withdraw the sanctions. So, and Iran has taken great offense to the way that their Revolutionary Guard has been labeled as terrorists, and the fact that the deal was scrapped. And so you have both sides trying to save face. You have a belligerent Iran, and you have a president of the United States who has staked his administration on the folly of that Iran deal.
Let's check in with Asaf. The IAEA says that Iran is still complying with the nuclear deal, and yet according to this former IAEA deputy, that doesn't really mean much because he claims Iran is capable of developing nuclear arms in just 6 to 8 months. Is this the first time you're hearing such an assessment? Is this a new status, or is it something that the Obama administration brought in mind before they signed the nuclear deal in 2015?
Look, they were the same people who agreed that Iran is going to do self-inspections about what they already have and then tell the world. So I don't think anything, and I agree with Thane here, there's nothing here that's really new with this regard. I think that Iran has been taking advantage all along that the pressure has been put on other areas of the Middle East to continue developing what their end goal has been, to develop nuclear arms. And I think that is a great concern to the Middle East at large, as far as them still being the largest destabilizing factor in the region at large. There's nothing new about any of this stuff. I think that they have been hoping to play this kind of diplomatic game of chicken, but the Iranians are very smart. They've been playing three-dimensional chess while we played kind of checkers with them during the Obama administration, and now they're kind of called onto the carpet to kind of ask for some kind of transparency and accountability. The intelligence shows otherwise. The Israelis have proven that. And they're showing, of course, their cards to the rest of the world by the fact that they're continuing to do what they've been telling everybody else that they're not doing. And so we know they're lying about it. And the question is, what are we going to do about it?
Thane, the Iranian foreign minister, he claims that it was not Iran that sabotaged the oil tankers in the Persian Gulf, but rather fabricated Israeli intelligence that claimed that Iran did so. Is Israel that sophisticated, or is Zarif really in denial?
Look, you heard my friend Asaf. You know, the Iranians are great at deflecting attention elsewhere. The fact that their foreign policy mischiefs in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, this was all intended to be a kind of smoke and mirrors. So it's not surprising that when they're involved in something that is truly nefarious, they'll blame Israel. And in this case, they did it again.
Asaf, I really wanted to ask you this. What do you make of the reports that Russia might be more willing to cooperate with the U.S. and Israel against Iran's presence in Syria? You know, an Arabic newspaper claimed that the U.S. and Israel will offer incentives to Russia that could include officially legitimizing the rule of President Assad in Syria in return for Iran's exit from the country. You know, 5 years ago, this could have been very, very controversial, but not so much in today's reality.
Not so much in today's reality, but then again, you have to put the power play into context. The Russians have been going around under Putin for the past few years, especially under the Obama administration, telling the rest of the world that if you don't want to turn into a Libya, you got to trust the Russians. And they've been a force in the region. And so the only reason that Assad is still in office is because Putin said he could still be in office. Now, the question is, how much leeway do the Israelis and do we have here as far as playing this diplomatic game? The Israelis have two foreign policies. They have one towards us, meaning the United States, and another one towards the Russians, given the amount of Russian expats and people like Avigdor Lieberman, who's been in the news of late, and other people who know how the Russians think about the Middle East at large. The fine line has been, intelligence-wise and as far as what the Russians appreciate, is that they recognize Hezbollah being a terrorist organization, being an arm of Iran. In that regard, we have agreement there. What they do not see, or where the difference lies, is between the fact that they still see the Iranians as a legitimate state actor. Now, the question is, if they're able to come to a conclusion between these conversations, Putin, Netanyahu, and Trump, that indeed Hezbollah represents a destabilizing factor funded by the Iranians, sponsored by and of course, with the Iranian Guard at large, that may be an area where we can get some kind of compromise.
Maybe we'll get some answers
there
after that security summit in Jerusalem. Meanwhile, Thane Asaf, stick around because I also want your thoughts on this next story. Let's turn to Israel. The new Palestinian premier is warning of a very hot summer at every level. Mohammed Shataya slammed the administration's proposed Middle East peace plan, which has not been released yet. He also told the New York Times, and I'm quoting, "Politically, we cannot take it that our kids in jail are terrorists. Our backs are really tight to the wall. We are now in control of the situation. I don't know for how long." And meantime, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, urged Saudi Arabia and Bahrain against supporting the U.S. Middle East peace plan, slamming it as a great betrayal of the Islamic world. Khamenei made these comments while presiding over a massive gathering of Eid worshippers. Watch.
This conference belongs to the Americans, but the leaders of Bahrain, with their weakness, their very bad mentality against their own people and Islam, have undertaken to hold this conference. The aim of this conference is to realize America's treacherous, dastardly plan on Palestine, which they have named the deal of the century. The deal of the century will, God willing, never take root.
Thane, Ayatollah Khamenei, he's urging Gulf leaders do not support this deal of the century. But the matter of fact is that Gulf leaders probably take more issues with him than with Trump, Netanyahu, or Israel. Is the Palestinian cause no longer a unifying factor in the Arab world?
Yes, Tal, it's laughably ironic because Iran is now lecturing the Gulf states not to participate in the Bahrain conference. And one of the reasons they have, in fact, wanted to participate.
Which is in Bahrain.
Bahrain,
They're
right,
urging Bahrain
right,
not to participate.
And the other Gulf states. And one of the reasons that they are participating in Bahrain is because they fear Iran. One of the reasons why they're willing to discuss the economic prosperity of Palestinians and not statehood itself is because of Iran. In so many ways, we're seeing the abandonment of the Palestinian people. To this extent, it's true. The Palestinians are finally paying the price for decades of obstinacy and rejectionism because now they really have their back to the wall. They're alienated and isolated in the region. And that has a lot to do with Iran because these Gulf states are virtually willing to say to Donald Trump, protect us against Iran. We all have a common enemy. We will be with you in respect to the Palestinian. We'll push them as much as we can, but we
as long as you have our back on Iran,
right? And we'll help finance it. We'll try this new attempt at dealing with the economic issues and not the statehood issues.
Asaf, it seems that every day we hear a different Palestinian official warning about the next round of escalation with Israel. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, they say they're capable of hitting Israel double hard. And today, it's not the first indication we hear about summertime. Does all of this mean that the next round is just around the corner?
Potentially. I mean, this is not a new thing, and there's enough reasons or excuses in the region, and I agree with my friend Thane there, as far as looking at the region, as far as support for Trump. Summer indeed is coming. This traditional, as when one of these wars are fought. Netanyahu is going to elections again at the middle of September. These are all part of the round of excuses. Kushner wants to release his plan, and you'll see probably similar activities and actions coming out of Gaza. The concern is going to happen. What happens if you see parallel movements in the north coming out of Hezbollah at the same time? And that forces Israel to fight two fronts, one in the north and one in the south, which you're seeing in parallel now with the tunnels that we're funding now up north from Hezbollah, as we've seen in the south with Gaza. So that's definitely a realistic understanding of where we're going next.
Never quiet there. Thane Rosenbaum and Asaf Romarovsky, thank you both.
Thank you.